To Network Africa. Coming up on the program, former opposition leader of Uganda, Mr. Kizza Besigye, takes those issues of house arrest to court. Then there are fears that the drought being experienced in Ethiopia could get even worse. And later, the ANC plans a meeting with the Guptas, and the latter welcomes an investigation into alleged influence. Welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television with me, Cynthia Are. Now remember those 9 times former opposition leader Kizza Besigye was held under house arrest? Well, Mr. Besigye does, and he certainly hasn't let go of that abuse of his fundamental human rights. Instead, he has opted to take the matter to court. Earlier in the day, Ugandan police clashed with opposition supporters after there was no ruling on the house arrest of opposition leader Mr. Kizza Besigye. That is contrary to what they were expecting to hear regarding the matter. As things stand now, we understand that the case has been recalled to the High Court following an application from the Director of Public Prosecutions. However, Mr. Besigye's lawyer, that's David Mpanga, disclosed that the speed with which the case file was recalled is rather questionable. Well, they say if you do the crime, then be prepared to do the time. For former Congolese Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba, he is looking at 30 years to life after being found guilty by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. Mr. Bemba has been found guilty of committing crimes against humanity as far back as 2002 and in 2003. The verdicts announced on Monday evening focused on the responsibility of a military commander for the actions of his troops, as Mr. Bemba commanded a private army of about 1,500 men who went on a spree of murder, rape and plunder. Mr. Bemba's long-running trial was the first at the ICC to feature allegations of systematic sexual abuse by soldiers in a conflict. Here's a quick look at the charges which Mr. Jean-Pierre Bemba was found guilty of. He was found guilty of failing to stop rebels from raping people in the CAR from 2002 to 2003. He was also found guilty of failing to stop rebels from killing people during the same period. He is now awaiting sentencing. Well, we're joined by former ICC prosecutor, Mr. Charles Adeogun Phillips. He joins us right now on the program from Lagos. Mr. Adeogun Phillips, thank you very much for your time. Now, kindly tell us more about the significance of this trial.
Well, it's significant in the sense that this is the first trial at the ICC on charges of what we call command responsibility or superior responsibility. And let me explain what that means. It's when a superior is held responsible for his failure to prevent his subordinates for committing crimes, or his failure to punish them after it has come to his attention that they have committed those crimes. So it is the first case of command or superior responsibility before the ICC. So in terms of the development of the jurisprudence of the ICC, it's quite significant.
Well, Mr. Adeogun Phillips, are we looking to see more cases of this nature, similar to this, being handled by the ICC in the near future, seeing this as the first of its kind?
Well, the concept of command responsibility simply broadens the scope of criminal liability for international crimes. You would often find that heads of government, heads of military formations, military commanders are often implicated this way, in the sense that very rarely are very senior officers present at the scene of the crime. Rather, they're remotely somewhere else. For example, in the Bemba case, Bemba was nowhere near the Central African Republic when his soldiers were committing these crimes. But the trial chamber found that he had effective control. The key word there is the ability of the commander to exercise effective control over the actions of his subordinates, as it were. And in this case, they found that the fact that Bemba was not physically in the Central African Republic did not prevent him from exercising effective control. So to answer your question, yes, we are likely to see more cases such as these.
My final question, Mr. Adeogun Phillips. Based on what you said about Mr. Bemba not being physically present in the CAR, but could actually have influenced the events that unfolded there, are we likely to see an appeal, and would he get it? Because we understand that he's facing about 30 years to life based on the fact that he's been found guilty.
Quite frankly, I think the judges at the trial chamber were a little almost unreasonable in their findings. I'm not privy to what the exact facts of the case are, but the evidence adduced to trial did show actually that Bemba did actually take steps to prevent his soldiers from committing these crimes. He had enlightenment campaigns. He advised them not to attack civilians. He even set up commissions to investigate the crimes that were committed by these soldiers. And those are the things that you are expected to do as a commander when you do post facto come to gather knowledge of the atrocities committed by your subordinates. You can't do more than launch inquiries into those actions, and the evidence would suggest that he did so in this case. So I do think that he might stand quite a good chance on appeal if he chooses to follow that path. Now,
I'm going to ask this for another question again, based on what you just said, Mr. Charles Adeogun Phillips. It's seen as there are some steps which Mr. Bemba actually took in order to probably prevent this situation. Could we actually see a retrial as opposed to an appeal?
No. It would most likely be an appeal. The conditions of retrials are extremely stringent, and I think in the history of international criminal law, there's only been one retrial ordered by an international court, and that was in the case of, I can't remember now, it was in the case of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, when they ordered a retrial in one trial against an army commander. It is very rare that they would order a retrial unless there has been a manifest miscarriage of justice or a misapplication of the applicable law by the trial chamber, which doesn't strike me to be the case here. This was purely evidential. They either believed him or believed his witnesses or not, and he would take his chances on appeal.
Yes. Well, Mr. Charles Adeogun Phillips, former ICC prosecutor, thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, still to come on the program, there are fears that the drought being experienced in Ethiopia could actually get worse. Details in just a moment.